The views and opinions of this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. There is substantial risk of loss in trading futures and options, which you should carefully consider prior to trading. Well, for the most part on Friday, the markets seem to drift their way into the holiday weekend with mixed to lower action in the grains and oilseeds and mixed action in the livestock sector as well. Let's talk through things. Joining us now for analysis, Brian Irie with Crossroads Co-op. And Brian, good to talk with you again. I would say overall, grain markets on Friday, kind of a mixed bag, maybe not the best way to close out the week, but all in all, wasn't a terrible week across the grain trade, was it?
No, it wasn't a bad week. I thought that the price action in corn and actually Kansas City wheat, Chicago wheat was very good up until the close last night. Even the open last night was a little bit promising, but we've lost a little bit of ground here, probably seeing a little bit of selling by some of the folks that got long throughout the week here, but definitely appears that we put a little bit of weather premium back into corn futures and maybe trying to factor in a little bit of prevent plant as we move forward here.
Well, thinking about that weather premium, could we see more of that potentially into these markets if we think about this from the seasonality perspective? I know a lot of times this Mother's Day to Father's Day window or Memorial Day weekend to 4th of July, this is kind of that window where seasonality and weather can tend to be at play, right, Brian?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that, even maybe complicating that a little bit was seeing that the funds had sold almost 500 million bushels more corn last week. I think that got us a little bit excited here coming into Monday. And it's very, very early to be discounting the market as much as it was. I mean, we had, I think, virtually zero weather premium in this thing until this week, and I still would not be a bit surprised here to catch a little traction as we move on into late May here and early June, and see December corn rally maybe another 15 to 20 cents. Maybe some of that's wishful thinking on the producer's behalf, but certainly feels like that's something that could happen here and maybe needs to happen a little bit.
What about the cash side of this equation? I know you're in Colorado, you're in the Western Plains. I've heard talk in various pockets across the country of some favorable basis for some folks. I mean, what are you seeing when it comes to the cash markets right now as we go through the holiday weekend?
In our part of the country, not a substantial change. I would say week on week basis, maybe up a nickel out here. And I think that's a function of obviously the producers preoccupied, the futures price being as low as what it is. Nobody feels compelled to get out and make a lot of cash sales, but we did see some corn move towards the middle part of the week as the futures began to rise. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, it was probably a 3 in terms of movement, but quiet here. I think as you get over into the east, I think they're reaching a little more to buy corn in the eastern corn belt. We've seen basis spike up there pretty decently from what we're picking up from boots on the ground. I don't know that we're going to get into that situation here just because cattle numbers in the west are not great. Demand is not great, therefore, but we did see some ethanol plants stick their head up and cover some June, July needs here this week. And I think that little bit of demand probably gave us the boost that we saw in basis here.
Brian, I know you track the wheat markets quite a bit as well. Would you say that wheat is undervalued here as we go through the holiday weekend? And could we be setting ourselves up for a bit of a wheat rally potentially into June?
It is that I've said wheat's undervalued for several weeks here. I don't believe that we get much of a rally flat price wise here unless we start to get news from harvest as it begins in Texas and starts to move northward of any yield problems or disease problems, that type of thing. It's just darn hard to sell wheat. There's a lot of wheat left, even in the country here for this time of year. I would say there's 10 to 15% more than you would typically see this time of year. I think commercials have been caught with some basis ownership and been waiting for basis improvement to lay bushels off. And when they do, it just crushes basis right back down to where it was before. And we've really fought that since harvest of last year, just a glut of wheat. It was, however, I think encouraging to see those wheat sales this week at 35 million bushels. That was definitely a good news, and maybe we're becoming the benefactors of feeder or cheaper futures here for the minute. I think the other thing that is going to play into the equation before it's all said and done is wheat carries are building. It is going to pay the commercial to carry wheat here, which in theory will keep wheat off of the market and should start to boost the basis a little bit at the very least.
How about over in that livestock sector, cattle? Here we are again, just another week of some futures volatility. Saw some cash movement, fairly steady, it looked like to me here this week. What's your view in this cattle complex? What are you hearing out in the cash trade there in your neck of the woods, et cetera, Brian?
We heard 225 to 228 traded here in the north this week. I hear 218 to 220 in the south. Definitely the feeder, the feedlot operators got the upper hand. I think they still have leverage on the packer at this point, and packers seem to be in the red a bit, but we're still fighting the problem. I mean, of no feeder cattle. I mean, it's just and really, really good demand. So I don't know where that ends up going as we move into the future, but it certainly seems to me that it's not a problem that's going to resolve itself. Was reading some notes here this morning that since November, it looks like 450,000 fewer head have come out of Mexico into the United States this year, and obviously that's going to impact Texas, Arizona feeders, and maybe even some Kansas and Oklahoma feeders. But that's a problem. That's a significant amount of cattle in this environment not to have come across the border.
That's a good point. Good point. Brian, as we wrap it up here today, anything final you would share with folks, reiterate to them, just as you're looking across the grain and livestock markets here heading into the holiday weekend?
It just feels like, Jesse, if we can get corn futures, soybean futures to rally as a producer, I would certainly stay on my toes, have my head on a swivel, and just really try hard to get some grain priced if we do get a 15-20 cent rally here. Even if you just get HTAs on it at this point, it still feels like weather is setting up to be fairly ideal. I know there are mixed long-term weather forecasts out there, some calling for pretty hot, dry weather as we finish up the growing season here in late July, August, but others are feeling like we are in great shape here and things ought to finish well. But I just think marketing opportunities are going to be few and far in between, and any type of a bump we get in futures is going to be your opportunity maybe to lock in a big part of your production and get it somewhere close to that break-even level or better, hopefully.
Brian, always appreciate the insights, and thank you for joining us. And if folks want to reach out to you there and have a conversation at Crossroads Co-op, what's the best way to do that, Brian?
They can reach me at 970-673-9888, and we'd be more than happy to visit with them about any risk mitigation or market environments or any of that type of thing.
And of course, the risk of trading futures and options can be substantial. Always want to remember that. Brian Irie, Crossroads Co-op. Good to talk with you again, sir. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to you again real soon. Appreciate it.
Sounds good. You have a great weekend yourself, and thanks for having me again.
Make sure to subscribe to the Market Talk YouTube channel. You can watch our latest interviews with top market analysts in the country, find bonus content, and much more. It's easy. Just go to youtube.com/@MarketTalkAg and hit the subscribe button. Or you can search for Market Talk Ag on YouTube.